Alright, so I'm going to show how to open up and disassemble this ASUS model UX305F. We're going to be replacing the DC jack or the charge port. So first what you're going to need is a T5 screwdriver bit. You'll probably need a PH or JIS one as well. Anyways, let's remove the screws here. Okay. So remove all the screws all the way around, 4 along the top, 1 on each side, and then 4 along the bottom. I believe there are some hidden underneath the rubber feet as well, but we'll see when we get there. Okay, keep the screws in order because they can be different size, shapes, and lengths. As I'm taking them out, it looks like the 2 in the middle back there are longer. But again, it's always good to put the same screws back where you got them, so try and keep them in order even if they are the same size and shape. Alright. Looks like the ones on the sides are also longer. Or maybe my eyes are playing tricks on me. Okay. It looks like for this cover you might have to use a pry tool or a suction cup. So we'll see what we need to get it apart. Okay. Alright, now that we got these 10 screws out, let's see. I think there are screws underneath these, so I'm going to lift this up. Okay, just get underneath. Yes, there are. Okay. Just like this. And yes, we do need the PH or JIS 1 screwdriver, so switch to that. And take those 2 out. Okay, I don't think the bottom ones have screws like that underneath, so we're not going to do anything with that. Alright, let's see if we can lift this out. Oh, okay. So apparently you can lift it up from the back here. Just get underneath and then lift it up. And the cover comes off pretty easily just like that. Okay, so we're going to set that aside. Then first thing you want to do after removing that is disconnect the battery connector. So let me zoom in so you can see that a little bit better. So you got the battery connector here. To remove that, I just get my fingernails underneath. Okay, and then I just pop this up just like this. Actually, is this one of those? Okay, no, you just pop it up just like that, okay? And once you pop that out, what you're gonna wanna do is open up the computer. Oh, there's a random loose screw in here. Hopefully that's not damaging anything. Okay, hopefully that wasn't causing damage to their charging issue. But anyways, open it up and then press and hold the power button for about 10 to 15 seconds. I need to figure out where that screw came from because that can cause damage inside the computer. Looks like it came from the battery. But anyways, alright, so after you're done holding the power button, close it up. And it looks like that screw came from right here. So let's see, for this it looks like we are going to have to switch to an even smaller Phillips or JIS screwdriver. So we're going to switch to JIS or PH0. Okay, so it looks like that screw came from there. And I'm going to have to make sure these screws are all tight because that can actually cause damage inside the computer. I'm actually going to have to remove all the screws for the battery. Let me zoom back out, sorry. So it looks like I'm going to actually have to remove all the screws from the battery because to get to the charge port here, I need to remove that, okay? So what we're going to do, let's go ahead and remove all these screws. Again, keep them in order. I'm going to, oops, okay, so it looks like there's one in the middle here, one on the side here. Okay, there's another one on this side here. Just keep all the screws in order, and then there's another one here. Alright, then we got another 4 running along the bottom, so let's remove those 4 as well. If you're wondering, it looks like the RAM is soldered to the board, but you can upgrade the SSD. This looks like an M.2 SATA SSD, so I don't know if it will support PCIe NVMe, but this current one is a SATA, so if you're going to upgrade and you want to be safe, make sure to get a M.2 SATA SSD. Don't try and get a PCIe NVMe. or there's a good chance it's not going to work. Alright, once you remove those 8 screws for the battery, we should be able to lift it up. Okay, it looks like it's lifting up. Okay, and oh, there's some tape here holding it, so make sure to get that out. It's stuck. There we go. And there's the battery. So the battery model number, if you need to replace it, it's right here, C31N1411. Okay, so hopefully that helps you guys. Let's set the battery aside. Alright, there's no fan in here actually, it looks like, so I don't know what's the point of this heatsink, because there's nothing that's blowing air into this, so that's kind of pointless actually. I guess it does increase the surface area, so it can kind of leach the heat away, but other than that, it's a little bit pointless. It looks like somebody tried to remove this, and that screw looks pretty badly damaged, so hopefully I'm going to be able to remove that, but actually I don't have to remove that side because I can remove this side. I hope. Okay, then you got a wireless card here. If you want to see how to remove the wireless card, watch my other videos. I show how to disconnect these antennas and remove this, but basically there's one screw, this lifts up and you can pull it out. The wireless antennas, you can go from the tail and just pop them up, but I'm going to leave that in there. There's also the CMOS or the BIOS battery here that you can disconnect from this little cable here. It's a little difficult to grab that, but you'd basically grab that little connector, wiggle it, and pull it out. And then the 2 USB ports and the SD card slots are on this separate board, so if you do need to replace that board, you can, and also with all these other components. Okay, so let's see here. We're going to remove this board. So again, this looks like an M.2 SSD, but it's a SATA one, so make sure that if you are to replace this, that you get a SATA SSD. Let's lift this out. Also make sure that you keep yourself grounded when working on computers, because you don't want to let static build up and shock the thing. Okay, so here we can see M.2. This is only 256 gigs, made by SanDisk, but it can be different depending on what you get. They don't label if it's actually SATA or PCIe NVMe, but usually, actually it does, SATA 6 gigabits per second Gbps, so sorry it's all blurry, but there you go. Okay, so yes, it is SATA. Okay, keep that in mind. Alright, so now we're going to remove everything else. You got the keyboard connector here. It looks like the keyboard is held in place with melted tabs, so if you need to replace the keyboard, these are very painful to replace unless you replace the whole top assembly. Alright, then you got the trackpad connector here. You got this cable that connects to this board. We're going to remove that as well. Okay, just remove those 2 screws. Okay. Once you remove those 2 screws, you should be able to get underneath this piece and then just kind of pop it up. Okay, just like that, and there you go. Alright, let's see. We also got the LCD or LVDS connector. Again, make sure you press and hold down the power button before removing this cable. Very important. If you don't, you can actually damage something on the computer. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and remove this. Let's get underneath. You want to peel up this tape. Maybe I should zoom in a bit more so you can kind of see. Probably should have zoomed in more for the other types of connectors, but I didn't think about it. Alright, so peel that up. Alright, so here, then you get this. You want to go towards the wings of this connector. I use my fingernails, and then I kind of just use that to kind of wiggle and pull it back. Just like this, though it, okay, it felt like there was an adhesive, but it doesn't look like it actually. There's adhesive towards the back of it though, so you do need to peel that up to get it off the board. Okay, just to move it out of the way. And then we're going to take out all these screws. There's also the speaker connector here. So that speaker wire, sorry, it plugs up here, goes to the speaker, and then it routes all the way to the other speaker on this side. But anyways, we're going to disconnect the speaker cable now. So what you want to do is just get this out of the way so it's not routed behind anything. And then, since it's really hard to grab this, if you can, you want to grab the plastic connector here, and then you can kind of pinch it and wiggle it. You can try and use tweezers if you can. but you just grab that, and then while you grab it, you can kind of just wiggle it and pull it. So got to keep wiggling it, and eventually it will pop out just like that. Okay, so there we go. All right, so now we're going to remove all the motherboard screws. So we got 2 here, okay, 1 up here, 1 down here. If you want, you can actually take a marker. This is probably, I'm going to do that so it's easier to keep track of. So you can take a marker. Oops, let me get the blue one. Oh, I need to zoom back out so you can see everything, sorry. So I just took 1 screw out from this spot. So it helps to actually take a marker and then just mark where you took the screw from. So I'm going to mark that. All right, take this screw out. All right, and we'll mark that one. Take this screw out. All right, mark that one. It's a lot of screws. All right, let's take this screw out. Hopefully you can see everything I'm doing. All right, mark that one as well. Some of these, actually, they all have these little white arrows, so technically you don't have to mark it, but I like to mark them. This one is like a white square, not really an arrow, so it's a little harder to tell. So I'm just going to mark them all with the blue marker so I can tell where I took them out from. All right, I got 1 up here. Like that. There's also a white arrow there. All right, and then I think this is the last one. There's 1 screw here holding this heatsink in place. So remove that one as well. And then we'll mark that. All right, there's also a piece of tape holding this down. So when we lift this, we're very likely going to have to try and peel that up. So let's see. I'm going to try and peel that tape up separately because if you try and use the heatsink to peel it up, you can easily bend that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a needle, get the needle underneath, and then I'm going to use that to peel up the adhesive just like that. Okay. All right, so now that we got all that off, hopefully we can lift the whole board up unless we missed a screw somewhere. All right, let's see here. Something is holding it down, but I'm not sure what. I don't see anything holding it down, but it's towards the center here. I hope the heatsink, no, the heatsink doesn't have screws. I think it's actually an adhesive. There we go. So you just pull it up. Be very careful and do it slowly. You don't want to just yank it real fast and then risk damaging this board. Okay, and then slowly lift it, and you want to pull it out from this side. Okay, just like that. And here you can see the bottom of the motherboard, and then I think this foam is the reason it was stuck. And here's the motherboard model information if for some reason you need to look that stuff up. Okay. So now what we're going to have to do is replace this charge port. So I'm going to do a test and see if I can actually see power coming through here, because if power is coming through this piece and, or not power, but if it is connected to the board and it's not getting any signal or power, oh, here's actually the thermal pad that was attached right over here. And that's actually what was stuck to it. But anyways, I'm going to set this aside. And then we're going to do, let me see if this voltmeter still works. I don't know, the battery might be low or dead. Let's see here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to the ohms or resistance. Okay, and what this does is when you turn it on, you should get a more expensive, better one. But when you turn it on, if you cross them, then it goes to 0. That means there's 0 resistance. Depending on what there is, then the resistance can change. So here you can see this is like pure copper, so really good low resistance. Okay, So now what we're going to do is all these 4 pins, these are the ground pins, and normally they should all be connected to each other. The problem is they put some kind of insulation stuff over this, but here you can see this pin is connected. If I check this, let's see here, I have to kind of like break that insulation stuff. It's difficult to get through that layer of insulation. Come on. Yeah, it doesn't want to get through that layer of insulation. So that's probably going to be an issue for me to test this thing. There we go. So I need to like scrape through it, and then here you can see, there we go. Let's scrape. Can I scrape through this? Come on. There we go. If I see any sign of reading, then I know it's kind of good. There we go. So I'm just trying to scrape through this stuff. This one, I don't know. The back legs, I'm not really getting much. Yeah, this one, I don't know. There might not even be connected actually. So let's see here what I can do. I can check from the top side. So these back legs aren't connected. Are they connected to each other? No? Interesting. I don't think that's a positive connection, so let's see. Nope. Should be connected to the negative. But I'm not getting a good signal on those, so I'm just going to change the charge port. Actually, let me check. So this is the replacement one. So the replacement one, if we look at it, hopefully it's the same. Looks like it. You got all those pins. Okay. So I'm going to check this one if it has the same reaction. So I'm going to touch that. Yeah, so this actually doesn't connect. That's interesting. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in here. Maybe these pins don't connect to anything and they're just, I think they're just there to hold the whole thing down. Interesting. Yeah, those pins don't connect to anything. So these back legs connect. And then this middle one should connect to the center thing here. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to check that on here. It looks like those side ones don't connect to anything. So let's check this. Huh. So that connects. That connects. And that connects. So I don't know why this isn't charging. It might be their charger, to be honest. Because now that I've checked all of this, it looks like the charge port is fine. That looks fine. That looks fine. That should not happen. So, okay, maybe that's the issue. Let's see here. Yeah, that should not be connected to that. That's very strange. See, when I go to this one, this middle pin, it should not connect at all to this. So hopefully when I replace this, it's not going to have that same issue. If it does, I don't know what's going on. That's very strange. So if it does, then there's some short inside the board, and then I'm not going to be able to fix that. So that I'll have to have someone else take a look at. This one, I'm going to use the hot air, but I have to be very careful because there's a very, very tiny component there. I believe that's like a capacitor or something. It's super tiny. So hopefully the heat's not going to be enough to knock that out, but I'm going to try and heat that up. And yeah, and we'll try and remove that. So I'm going to be back. I'm going to get my hot air station. I'm going to pause the video and then come back with that. All right, see you in a bit. All right, so I'm back. I got the hot air station. I'm going to have to see how I can align the camera in a way so that you guys can see what I'm going to be doing. Let's see here. I'm probably going to be, let's see, I might need some boxes or something. Okay. So, let's see here. Maybe I can use my little tool set to kind of hold it up. So let's see here. Okay. I'm going to use this, and maybe I need a taller box actually. So let's see what I got. Alright, I'm going to use this Amazon box, and hopefully this will be good enough. So I'm going to use this here, and I might need to tape it down so it doesn't open itself. Okay, hold on, I'm going to pause the video, I'll be back. Alright, so hopefully this setup will work. I got my hot air station, so I'm going to let it heat up. Okay, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to heat up this. Let me see here, I might need to put something on there so it doesn't fall over. Maybe I'll put this here. Okay, that should work. Alright, so I'm going to heat up this board. And I'm going to try and warm up a lot of the board just so it's not all hot in one concentrated spot. And then once the board is kind of warm, then I'll focus the heat all on the charge port so that I can remove it. Okay, so we're just going to heat it up just like this. Okay, it's warm, so now I'm going to focus the heat on here. And it's going to bubble up the plastic parts, but that's okay. So we're going to need to slowly heat that. I'm going to get my pliers ready. Pop my pliers open. Okay, and then I'm going to try and pull the charge port from below if it doesn't come out by itself. So we're going to pull this. Grab this piece, we're going to heat that, and while we're heating it I'm just slightly pulling down on it, so hopefully once it's hot enough it will just release on its own. Okay, slowly coming out. Come on, there we go. There we go, we got the old charge port out. Be careful with it, it's really hot. So I'm going to drop that on my water pad. We'll turn this off. And then we're going to have to switch to my soldering iron so that I can heat this up and then pull the solder out from there. So I'm going to check this. Okay, let me flip it over. Alright, that capacitor is still intact, so that's good. And yeah, now we just need to pull the solder from here. One of this is okay, the rest still have a bunch of solder in them. So I'm going to have to heat that up and then pull the solder out. Okay, so we're going to do that. I'll wait till that cools down. Let me plug in my soldering iron. Okay. Also need to let that charge port cool down so I don't burn myself. Alright, we'll set that aside. Okay. Let me get my soldering iron, I'm going to plug it in. So here's the soldering iron. Okay, let that thing cool itself down. Alright. So this one didn't have any clear signs of damage to the charge port other than it shorting out over the positive and negative. So hopefully that didn't damage the motherboard as I was saying earlier. I'm going to put my pliers on this side of the thing so that I can work on this without it falling over, hopefully. Okay, so that thing finished cooling itself down. I need to move it slightly to the side. I'll get my little soldering iron station here. And then I also need this. So I use this solder sucker to help pull the solder out. Hopefully I'll be able to show this in camera because usually I need this thing so that I can get this underneath, but right now it's at a weird angle, so I don't know if I'll be able to do that, but I will see what I can do. Okay, so this thing should hopefully be hot enough, and what you do is you get the solder sucker underneath. Okay, normally you want it completely flat, so let's see if this will work. Okay, then you basically heat this thing up. And when it's nice and hot and molten, then you use the solder sucker to pull the solder through. Alright, so there we go. It did clear out the solder. Then you just take this, you push the air or solder back out, and then you continue with the other ones. Sometimes if there's not enough solder left on there, you might have to add some solder to it, just so it has enough to kind of grip. So we're gonna heat this one up, or just so it has enough to stay molten long enough. All right, so heat that up, suck it through. That's working nicely. All right. Next one. To be a little careful, I'm going to drop my end up dropping my pliers on the thing. Okay, so this, normally I wouldn't do this like this in camera because I have to do this, I would do it off my desk so that way I have room for the solder sucker. But oops, to try and show this on camera, I have to do it this way. Alright, so let's see here. Heat that up and suck it through. Alright, go. Looks like it's working nicely. So we'll get this one. Same thing. Heat it up. See, this one doesn't want to melt. So I'm gonna have to add some solder to that. So we're gonna get the solder here, and then we're gonna heat this up. And while we're heating this up, we're gonna apply the solder to it. So you heat that up, touch the solder to it, there we go. All right, and hopefully that will be good enough that we can pull it through. Otherwise, let's see, I might have to pull this away from my desk. Let me see if I can adjust the camera so you can see over here. Kind of, not really. I don't want to, let's see, I'm going to have to bend this over a little bit. Oh, so you can kind of see my legs. Okay, so I'm going to do it this way, it'll be easier. Okay, so we'll go here. And, oh, you can't actually see it. Let me move it some more. I'm gonna have to stare at my crotch now. Okay, so here we go. Get that there. And we'll heat this up. And while we're heating that up, right, get it nice and molten, and then suck it through. All right, it got a little bit of it. Hopefully we can get the rest of it out. Okay. Some of these, if it doesn't come out, what you have to do is you have to heat it while pushing the new part in place, and then it will hopefully pull it through. Heat that up. There we go. I think that got it. Yep. Alright, so got all of that out. Alright, let's get the positive pole out. Alright, get it nice and molten and pull it through. There we go. Nice, it's working out. And the last one. Heat that up. Slowly turning to molten. Come on. Okay, that one needs more solder because it's a little contaminated, so it's not melting properly. So just add a tiny bit. Sometimes just adding more solder helps lower the melting point so that it melts easier. Okay. Heat that up. There we go, nice and molten, and pull it through. Oops. Get it. So this last pin is kind of being a pain. I might have to just push it through with the part. So let's see how it goes. But we'll see. Yeah, see, it doesn't want to come through. So what I'm going to do, let me try one more time. I'm going to clean off the soldering iron. Because it does feel like it's completely melting, but on the bottom side, I don't think it's melting. That's kind of strange. Alright, so let's heat this up. Yeah, oops, there's too much solder stuck to the soldering iron. Okay, let's try one more time. Get that lined up. Melt that. Yeah, it doesn't seem to want to come through. So what I'm going to do, let's see if this will work. I'm going to take the part. All right. Go here. Hopefully all the rest are clear enough. I'm going to try and drop this through. Okay. Looks like it's kind of lining up. So what I'm going to have to do is, while I'm kind of trying to push this through, I'm going to have to heat this up, and hopefully that will be good enough to get it to go through. Okay. Try and heat this, melt it, and come on. You know you wanna. It doesn't want to come through. So for some reason, this one pin on this corner, oh, there we go. Okay, so now we got it to go through. There we go. I heated it up enough that I could push this pin through, and now it's actually soldered in place already. But I'm going to clean that off. I'm actually going to add some flux to it. You don't have to completely clean it. If you add flux, the solder will actually flow all into it. So I use this stuff. All right, let me change the camera back over because you don't need to stare at my crotch anymore. There we go. All right, so what you do is you get this flux stuff. There's lots of different kinds. You can use the one that's like a paste. You don't have to use this one that's more solid. Normally it's not all crystallized like this, but I've had this flux for a while, so that's why it's all crystally like that. Okay, and this stuff burns off, so you kind of want to have a well-ventilated area. You don't want to breathe in all these fumes that come off from it. Okay, so again, I'm going to hold this in place, and then I'm going to melt it, and the flux will actually help the solder stick a lot better. Just like this. There you go. There you go. It held in place. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add flux to all of them. So this is a little trick that I found, is if you add flux to these, when you put the solder, it's a lot easier. And actually, usually the solder will come with flux built in, but I found the easiest way to do this is you actually put the solder onto the soldering iron, and then when there's flux in here, you can actually just touch the soldering iron to that with the solder on it, and it will flow all the solder right to where you want it. So this is actually a trick that makes doing this way easier. Okay, if you have the liquid kind, it'd actually be easier, but I don't have that. I'm not sure. And then I want to just use all of this. I could order it, but since I have this, might as well use it. I don't want to just toss this. I don't know if there's a way to mix this solder with something to make it liquid, and then I can do that, but yeah. Alright. So I'm just adding the flux to all these little holes. You don't want to get it outside too much, because then the solder will start flowing to where you don't want it. Alright. Alright, you can just get like a little blob there. You can always add more later. When the metal is nice and hot, it'll actually melt onto it, and then it makes it a lot easier. So, alright, so there we go. So now that we got everything all fluxed up, what you're going to want to do, clean off your soldering iron, and then I like to do this away from the board, so that way, because sometimes it splatters, so you just get some solder onto the soldering iron, just like this. Hopefully you can actually see. Okay, and then now that the solder's on there, I just touch it onto the flux spot. And there you go, the solder just flows nicely. And then you just heat the solder, get it to melt nicely on there. Okay, and then pull it away, just like that, and you get a very nice flow of the solder. Okay, so then you do the same thing, wipe it off, add the solder. All right, and then touch it to the part with the flux where you want it to go. Go, and then heat it up, get it nice and melty, and it should flow right to where you want it, just like that. And you just do that for the whole thing. Clean it up. Add the solder. All right. And that smoke coming out is actually the flux, so that's why I have to add new flux onto the part itself. And then just melt it. Get it right where you want it. If you want, after that, you can add more because this one's kind of flat. So to add more, what you do, you don't want to put it towards the iron, but you heat up the piece that you want the solder to go, and then you push the solder onto it just like that. Okay, just like that, and then the solder will actually go where you want it. So that's the way you would normally do it, but sometimes you don't get good contact with the part, so I like to do it the way with the flux first and the soldering iron. Okay, so there we go. Clean that off, get more solder on the iron. Touch it to there. Alright, and we're just going to keep repeating this. So you can see it flowed in. Then we just heat it up. Add more solder. Just like that. Alright, so we only got those last two. Same thing, heat it up. Add the solder. Right. Touch it on there. There we go. And the solder just flows nicely onto it. Again, that trick with the flux helps a lot. Okay, just like that. And the last one. After that, you want to inspect it all around. Okay, last one. Heat it up. Alright, that one needs more solder. So I'm going to heat that and then add more, just like that. Alright, so now that we're done, check the other side. Alright, looks like it's good. Solder flowed in. Solder's flowed in underneath as well. So we're good to go. What you want to do next with the soldering iron to keep it from getting messed up, turn it off. After you turn it off, clean this off. Alright, the soldering iron will hold a lot of heat. And then you want to take your solder and then just apply it all around the tip of your soldering iron. Okay. That's called tinning the tip, and that prevents the tip from getting oxidized so that it lasts a lot longer. So you can see the stuff is still burning off, and that's okay. Let it cool down completely with the solder on it. Okay, so we're done with the soldering iron. We're done with all the soldering stuff. I'm going to put it away, and I will be back. Alright, I'm back. So after you do all of that, you want to clean off the solder, or the flux I mean. So you do get a paper towel, get some rubbing alcohol, okay, isopropyl alcohol, and then just put that on the paper towel. All right, and then you'll see that there's that, let me see if you can see it, but there's this brownish gunk on it, so you just want to wipe that off with the rubbing alcohol. All right, just like this. Clean it all up. All right, just like that. Try and clean it off. You don't want to leave this stuff behind because it's kind of gross. And I've been told, I think, that it can oxidize the metal. So here you can see there's that stuff coming out. I'm going to flip it over. I don't know how true that is because I usually see a lot of electronics like this one. They actually, oops, like that. They actually leave some behind as well. But yeah, so whatever, but I like to clean it off just so it's nice. I don't like to leave that gross stuff behind. Okay, make it look nice and clean and professional. Clean that all off. Use the dry side, dry it off. And there we go, looks good. Okay, so there we go. Oops, looks so much better. Okay, and yep. All right, so toss that. All right, so now we're gonna put the laptop back together and hope that that solved the issue that my customer was having. Zoom back out. All right, we don't need any of that junk anymore. We'll throw that aside. Better put that back in my box so I don't forget it. All right. Oops. All right, so let's get back the computer. Here we go. All right, so just like before, we're gonna put it back, but in reverse. So you want this side to go in first at an angle like that. But the only thing is you have to make sure all these cables remain on top. So that's the thing that makes it a little bit tricky. So get this underneath all those cables. Okay. Just like this, lift up that cable. All right, make sure to pull this out from underneath, and then we'll get that one last. So you want to check and make sure that the charge port is slotted in as well as the headphone jack. Okay, they should go flush with that stuff. And then pull this cable out as well. Make sure this ends up on top. Let's see, it's not wanting to go in all the way for some reason. So make sure, might have to lift it a bit higher and push this in. Okay, let me check from this side. It looks like it's flush, so I don't know why it's kind of not wanting to rest down all the way. Let's see here. Are there any things that line up that need to go out? It's stuck, so I don't want to force it down. Let me take it back out and check. Nothing here. Nothing here. So I don't know. Other than the charge port going in the slot. Oh, I'm getting text messages. I think I muted my thing. It's like 1 AM right now and I'm still getting messages. So anyways, pull this. Actually, it might be later than 1 AM right now. But anyways, get that all lined up. So that's the hardest part. I think, oh, right here, it's not lining up right. So there's that one plastic connector or raised bit that sticks up here right above the screw hole. That's not lining up, so I'm going to try and move it here and see if I can look at it and get it to go in properly. That's the tricky part, is getting all these ports to go in right so that it can line up with these plastic holes. There's 2 raised plastic bits here and they have to line up with that. If it doesn't line up, then it's not going to let the motherboard go down. So I don't know why it doesn't want to go in. It doesn't look like it's because of the charge port, so something else is not sliding down all the way completely. Let's see. I don't know what it is. Oh, think it's the headphone jack. The headphone jack looks like it's fine. So for some reason this doesn't want to go in all the way. Sorry if my head's getting in the way. I'm trying to see what's going on here. So I don't know why, but these two raised plastic bits, it's not, this thing isn't sliding far enough to pass those, and that's what's causing it to not seat properly. And it's very important that I get that to seat properly or this won't go down. Come on. Looks like the right side isn't wanting to go in. Oh, there we go. Okay, that's in. Okay, there we go. So now let's pull these pieces on top. Alright. We're getting there. Alright, so it looks like I have to kind of force to push that over. And there's this side as well. There's all these raised bits that you need to make sure go in properly. If they don't, then it won't sit down, and you don't want to just force smash it in place because then you can cause damage to the main board. Okay, so this one's going in. There we go. And that's going in as well. Alright, so it looks like we're all good. So now we just got to put these screws back in. Alright, so take that. Alright, let me see what I do with my box of screws. Oh, here we go. Set it aside. Alright, so now we're going to put back the screws one by one. So first let's put back this screw down here. Usually I like to put them loosely first, just so that I can make sure all the screws are lined up. So got that. This one. Again, I'm just putting them loosely first to make sure everything lines up. These screw holes look like I need to kind of pull this down. Okay, there we go. It looks like it's staying in place. This one I'm going to put actually a little more tight just to make sure it stays in place. Okay, and then we got the three up here. So we got this one up here. This one here. I really hope it was the charge port, because if it wasn't, then I don't know. I actually should have did the same test with this. So let me actually do that real quick. So now that I got all of these screws in, okay, make sure you tighten all the screws. There we go. Alright, so hopefully I didn't miss any cables under there. It looks like I got them all out. Okay, so we're going to set that aside. Let's do this test. Now that it's not coated with that stuff that they put on the other one, hopefully I can test this better. Okay, so if we do ground to ground, this whole metal jacket is the ground. Oops, hopefully you can see that. Alright, so as you can see, if I, touch that there, we're good. Let's touch this one. That one's good. This should be a ground. That's good. This also should be a ground. I don't know. Sometimes, let's see. Is this one not connecting for some reason? It connects when I touch both. So this is the one that I think the pin wasn't doing anything. For some reason now this one pin does go to ground, but this one for some reason doesn't. So it's kind of strange. Cut that, and then, oh, it still shorts to ground. So that's very weird. It seems like it's a motherboard issue. I'm starting to worry now, because that means the connection I was checking earlier, it looked okay. So I might have done all that work for nothing. I'm going to put it back together and hope that maybe something was bent inside the charge port, though it didn't look messed up. But anyways, we're going to put that back in. You put that, the keyboard cable in, put the latch back down. Right, trackpad cable, make sure the latch is up. cable in, put the latch down, push that cable back in place, get the speaker connector, and of course just get it back in place. You want to make sure that these cables get pushed in all the way. Sometimes they don't go all the way. What I do is I use my fingernail at the very tip. Let me see here if I can show. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but I use my fingernail at the very tip of this connector, and then I squeeze the other end to pull it all the way in, just like this, to pinch it in place. Okay, I don't like to just push one way because sometimes the connector, the solder joints aren't good, and then it rips it off. All right, then we'll get this connector, pull it back, get it in place, make sure that it lays flat and goes underneath the two corners, just like this. Right, and then I like to use the wings again to pull it. I don't like to pull this tab because that just pulls the adhesive tape out. Okay, there we go. Just like that. Okay, we got all those screws. Pretty sure, oops. Zoom back out. Alright, pretty sure I tightened that. Yep. Okay, so now we need these two screws here. Then we need the, oh, I guess we can put the SSD first. So I'll put the SSD back in. You put it slightly at an angle like this. All right, slightly at an angle. Push it in and then drop it down. Put that screw back in place. All right. Okay, we'll take the battery, drop it back down in place. Make sure everything lines up. I don't know why it's hovering up here. There's nothing underneath, right? Nope. It's kind of weird. Okay. Line up the little, oops, let me zoom out a little more. Line up the little raised nubs here. That one and that one. Okay. And then we'll put back all the screws. Just like that. And I hope that worked because this customer, they had a assignment extension for their homework. And if this doesn't work, I don't know what they're gonna do. But yeah, all right, so let's finish all these screws. I don't know what that sound was. Something just fell down. All right, get all these screws in. Last screw. All right, so we got that. Push that connector down. Make sure the battery's nice and tight in place. You can push back the tape here and also push back the tape down here. All right, and we'll get the cover. Put that back on top. There's not really any clips that hold this. I'm going to switch back to the PH or JS1. We'll put back the two corner screws. Alright, done with that. Put these little rubber covers back on top. Alright, and then we'll switch back to the T5 or the Torx 5 screwdriver and put back all these little screws. And that's pretty much all there is to this. Hopefully this video helped you guys. If it did, like and subscribe. Help others find my videos. You're welcome to stay and watch until I finish putting back all the screws. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's see. actually see. I'll plug it in and see if it does anything. Let me finish doing this first. Alright, I'll be back with the charger, and I'll see you guys in a bit. We'll plug it in and see if this thing charges or not. Okay, see you in a bit. Alright, moment of truth. I probably should have tested this first, but the customer gave me this like, I think a day or two ago. So let's see here. So what we're going to do, I'm going to change it to the voltage setting. And then what we're going to do is check and see if the charger is actually putting out any power. So to do that, this one is so small I have to use a needle in the middle hole. Be careful because now these you can touch both ends. So the outside is the negative and then this side is the positive. Here you can see it is putting out power, 19.5 almost voltage. So that's good. So now I'm going to take that out. Alright. And then let's plug this in and see if we're okay or if it's shorted somewhere in the board. So there's the charge port battery light. Let's see if we're lucky. Oh, there was a clip there. Okay. All right. So let's plug it in. And oh no, it still doesn't charge or anything. So I think the shortage is really on the motherboard itself. And yeah, it's not gonna, looks like it's not gonna turn on. Let's try turning it on and see what happens. Nothing at all. Oh no. So it looks like my customer's actually going to have to buy a new laptop. So anyways, hopefully this video helped you guys. If it did, like and subscribe, help others find my videos. Thank you for watching. I'll have to see what to do with my customer. If anything, hopefully if their assignment is on that SSD, I can actually pull the data off at least, and then they can do it and get a new computer. Alright, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in another one. Bye.